massive, I mean literally a seismic shift hitting the Android ecosystem. You know the drill, we take the breaking tech news and we break down the mechanics behind it. So if you've been tracking the whole App Store war over the last few years, you know the vibe has been, well, tense. But out of nowhere, there's a huge break in the standoff. And this is going to ripple out and affect developers, competitors, and honestly, all of us who use these devices. Let's just dive right into exactly what's going down. Okay, let's dive into this. July 22nd, 2026. Go ahead and circle that on your calendar because it's the anchor for everything we're talking about today. This is the exact day Google is officially opening the floodgates to third-party app stores on Android. Now, look, I know what you're thinking. Android has technically always allowed sideloading, right? But setting up a legit standalone competitive storefront, that's been a massive uphill battle. Starting on this date, though, Google is basically rewriting the foundational rules of app distribution on their platform. But why the sudden rush? Well, to figure that out, we got to look at the spark that lit the whole powder keg.
Which brings us to part one, the catalyst, Google versus Epic Games.
So this long-running, super publicized legal battle is the driving context behind this breaking news. Back at the start of that massive lawsuit, Epic Games made a really specific and, frankly, totally audacious initial demand. They didn't just want Google to make it easier for third-party stores to exist. No, they demanded that Google actually house those rival app stores directly inside the Google Play Store itself. I mean, just think about that for a second. It's kind of like asking a massive retailer to let their biggest competitor set up a cash register right in the middle of their flagship store. Obviously, Google fought this tooth and nail for years, but the bombshell today? They're finally dropping the fight. Let's look at the official statement Google actually submitted to the court explaining their pivot. They said, "We've agreed with Epic to withdraw our motion to modify the U.S. court's injunction rather than prolonging this process which creates uncertainty for the ecosystem." And this brilliantly illustrates their new strategy. Instead of dragging out a brutal legal battle to try and change the court's injunction, they're just ripping the Band-Aid off. They're choosing to accept the baseline requirements right now to kill that uncertainty looming over their global business model. But, and it's a big but, opening the door to competitors doesn't mean they're removing all the locks, right? Which leads us straight into our next section, the Catch-22, challenges for competitors. Because while this whole thing sounds like amazing news for open competition on the surface, when you really dig into the source material, you start uncovering some wild hurdles. $5,000. Boom. That's the bold, inescapable annual access fee that third-party stores have to pay just to house listings for Play Store apps. Google says this fee is strictly there to cover their security and policy reviews. And sure, $5,000 might literally be a drop in the bucket for a giant megacorporation, but for a scrappy startup trying to build a cool indie app storefront, that's a very real, tangible toll booth. And honestly, the financial cost is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the challenges they're facing. Let's rapidly run through this list of strict operational hurdles a competitor actually has to clear. First up, like we just said, that $5,000 annual access fee. Second, this entire initiative, it's locked to United States operations only, so zero international distribution under these specific terms. Third, any new store has to have clear, non-discriminatory trust and safety policies. Fourth, they can't be exclusive. They absolutely must be open to all eligible developers. And finally, they've got to strictly limit malware, basically guaranteeing that less than 1% of all install attempts include malicious software. So as you can see, building a competing store isn't just throwing up a server somewhere. It's navigating a heavily regulated obstacle course, entirely designed and overseen by Google. Let's move to our next piece of the puzzle and see how this builds out for the actual creators. Section 3, the fine print, how developers are affected. Look, you can't have a brand new store without merchandise on the shelves, right? So starting on that crucial July 22nd date, a massive catalog data transfer kicks off. Your US apps, games, icons, descriptions, even the screenshots and promo videos that you originally gave solely to Google Play, they are automatically going to be made available to these third-party US stores, meaning sharing all this comprehensive catalog data is the brand new default standard. Basically, a developer's digital storefront is going to be mirrored straight onto these competing platforms, just to make sure they actually have a solid catalog of apps to offer users on day one. Now, developers do technically get a choice here, but it comes with a massive caveat. So the crucial point is really understanding these two distinct realities. By default, you are opted in. Your app gets distributed on a third-party store, but, and here's the crazy catch, the actual download of that app is still completed directly through Google Play on the exact same terms. And because of that, Google Play's service fees still applies to every single download. It is inescapable. Your only other option is to completely opt out and just refuse third-party store distribution across the board. So yeah, if you participate in this new open ecosystem, Google's cash register is still the one ringing up the transaction at the end of the day.
Which brings us to the big picture. Section 4, the ultimate ecosystem impact.
We really need to zoom out for a second and look at what this highly regulated floodgate actually means in the real world. Google obviously has a very specific, stated vision for this change. Back in their court statement, they claimed this evolution will deliver greater App Store choice, lower prices, and more opportunities for developers and users. Now, I want you to really weigh that super optimistic corporate vision against all the strict challenges we just went through. If competitors have to pay access fees, if they can only operate in the US, and if developers are still getting hit with the exact same Google Play service fees no matter where the app is listed, you gotta wonder, how exactly do prices get lower for anybody? And that brings us to the final, really provocative question I want to leave you chewing on today. With all of these insanely tight regulations, the default opt-ins, and those inescapable service fees, does this actually create competition, or is it just the illusion of it? Are we really stepping into a truly open Android ecosystem, or is this just a highly curated expansion pack being managed by the exact same landlord? It's a fascinating regulatory maneuver for sure, and its true impact on everyday users and developers is something we are going to be watching like a hawk. Thanks so much for joining me for this explain.